The handcuffs were too small for my wrists. I remember thinking that, of all things, while two officers walked me out of my own workshop in front of three clients holding their priceless violin bows like wounded birds. Scarlett stood by the polishing bench, one hand pressed over her mouth, her eyes shining with the practiced shock of an actress who had rehearsed the moment for months. "Ozzy, I trusted you," she whispered, loud enough for the older officer to nod sympathetically and the younger one to take a small note. The older officer's name was Sergeant Mallory. The younger one had a coffee stain on his collar. These are the strange things you notice when your life ends in front of you. A famous violinist named Mr. Carraway clutched his sartori bow against his chest like a child. He had walked into our shop expecting an apology and a refund. He had not expected to watch a woman he had once called the finest restorer in the country be marched into a squad car. $20,000 in damage to my bow, he hissed as I passed. 20,000. I tried to speak. My tongue felt like wet paper. The squad car door clicked shut. Through the tinted window, I watched Scarlett wipe a single tear with the back of her thumb. She was smiling underneath it. The interrogation room had a clock on the wall. It was missing its second hand. I sat in a metal chair that wobbled when I breathed. My name is Ozioma Atlas, but everyone calls me Ozzy. I am 29 years old, and I restore violin bows, the kind that cost more than houses, the kind concert players whisper to before walking on stage. Before I tell you what happened to me inside that cold little room, please do me a small favor. Hit that like button, tap subscribe, and drop your city and local time in the comments. It means the world to know where you are listening from. Now, back to the story. The detective slid a photo across the table, a close-up of a frog. That is the part of a violin bow your hand grips, the small carved piece that holds the horsehair. It was a forgery, a clever one. The mother of pearl was real, but the silver casting underneath was wrong by 20 grams. This was hidden under the original, he said, on Mr. Carraway's sartori. I did not make that, I told him. Your tools made it. My tools live in a shop with 3 other people. He smiled the way men smile when they already know the answer. He slid another photo across. It was a receipt, with my signature on it, for the exact silver alloy used in the forgery. Bail was set higher than I had ever held in cash. My lawyer was a man named Elias Brockwell. He charged by the breath. He was the kind of lawyer my mother believed in because his suits cost as much as his retainer. Ozzy, this is a forgery ring, he said, inside a glass conference room that smelled like old paper. 3 bows in 2 years, each frog was switched. The originals were sold to a private buyer in Geneva. The trail leads back to your shop, to your hands. Scarlett handles the books, Scarlett meets the buyers, Scarlett handles overseas shipping. Scarlett has alibis, travel records, bank statements. You have a workbench full of solvents and a receipt with your name on it. I looked at my hands. They were small, scarred, stained with rosewood oil that never washed out. Hands that had cradled a torque bow worth more than my apartment for 6 months while I rebuilt its grip. Elias slid a folder across the table. Inside were 3 more receipts, 3 more orders, all signed by me. I never bought any of this. The handwriting expert disagrees. I closed my eyes. Somewhere in my chest, a door I had never noticed before clicked quietly shut. He spoke softly. Ozzy, they want you to take a plea. Scarlett came to my apartment 3 days after I was released on bail. She brought a glass dish of sugared almonds, the kind her grandmother used to send her every December, the kind she always said tasted like home. I let her in. I do not know why. Some habit older than the betrayal still pulled the door open for her. Ozzy. She sat on my couch like she had sat on it 1,000 times. I am ruined for you. Are you? They keep asking me questions. They want me to say things about you. I watched her unwrap the dish. Her nails were freshly painted, the color of dried blood. She had recently colored her hair. Her shoes were new. How is the shop? I asked. Closed for now. Of course closed for now. We will reopen when this passes, when you come home. When I come home. Yes. She squeezed my hand. Her palm was warm and dry and lightly perfumed. After they realize. The almonds sat between us. I did not eat one. I noticed something then, a small thing. The bracelet on her wrist, a strand of silver beads I had never seen before. The clasp was old, the hallmark was old. I had handled enough antiques to know one when I saw one. That bracelet had not been hers a month ago. My mother called me every morning at 6. She lives 2 hours north in a quiet town where women still hang clothes on lines. Her voice was the same now, tired, soft, already negotiating with the worst version of my future. Ozioma, listen to me. Take the plea. 18 months suspended, no prison, we move on. I did not do this, Mama. The world does not care what you did. The world cares what they prove. She had spent her savings on Elias, her savings, plus a loan against the small clinic where she ran a pharmacy. She had built that clinic with her own hands over 20 years. Now it was collateral. Mama, please trust me one more week. I trusted you 29 years. That is what got us here. I sat on the floor of my apartment. Outside, a neighbor was learning to play guitar. Badly. The same chord, over and over, like a question nobody could answer. Elias called 20 minutes later. They added another count. Mr. Carraway is pressing personally. He wants you charged with grand theft on top of the forgery. Why personally? He had a meeting last night with someone who told him he used to brag about how easy it would be to fool him. Who told him that? Elias hesitated. The pause was long enough to know. Scarlett Devereux. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Beige walls. A single window with the blinds half drawn. The judge had reading glasses balanced on the tip of his nose and a habit of scratching his ear with the end of his pen. Scarlett took the stand on day 3. She wore navy, modest, a small gold cross on a chain that I had never seen before. She had not worn jewelry like that in 12 years of friendship. She cried in the right places. Her hands trembled when the prosecutor handed her the photographs. She named our shop with grief in her voice, like it was a child she had lost. Ozzy was my best friend, she said. She was the artist. I was just the books. I would have noticed things, but I trusted her. I trusted her completely. The prosecutor walked her through 12 months of receipts, 12 months of forged signatures, 12 months of me, apparently, slowly draining clients' instruments while smiling in their faces. I sat next to Elias. I did not move. I did not blink. I let her speak. When she stepped down, she walked past my chair, close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same one she had worn since college. A small white flower note that used to make me smile. She did not look at me. I knew in that moment exactly how she had built the trap. The verdict took the jury 2 hours. 2 hours to dismantle 11 years of work, 6 awards, 2 written features, and the only career I had ever wanted. Guilty. Forgery. Conspiracy to defraud. Grand theft, reduced to receiving stolen property because they could not prove I had personally sold the originals. 18 months suspended. 5 years probation. A civil judgment of $1.2 million, joint with the shop. A permanent injunction barring me from any business involving instrument restoration, appraisal, or sale. The judge read the sentence in a voice flat as a kitchen counter. He did not look at me. Nobody looked at me except my mother, whose face had become a quiet ruin. Scarlett wept softly 2 rows behind the prosecutor. Her shoulders shook. A court officer brought her a tissue. The shop was sold within 30 days. Scarlett bought my equity for $14,000. The judgment ate that within an hour of the wire transfer. I packed 3 boxes, my tools, my grandmother's prayer beads, a photograph of my first repaired bow. Nothing else. On the way out of my apartment, my landlord handed me a final notice. Past due. He had been merciful for a month. The mercy was over. I walked to my car. I did not know where I was driving. I just knew Scarlett could not find me again. The mountain town was named Selden Hollow. I found it on a map by closing my eyes and pointing. It had 1 main road, 2 churches, a feed store, and a cabinet shop with a hand-painted sign that read Rye and Daughter. There was no daughter anymore. The owner told me that on my 2nd day before he asked my last name. His name was Thomas Rye. Late 60s. Hands like cracked leather gloves, eyes the color of weak tea. He hired me on a Tuesday, after I sanded a single piece of cherry to his exact tolerance and did not ask for a stool when I worked standing for 6 hours. You know wood, he said. My father taught me, when I was small. What kind of work was he in? Furniture. Some restoration. Some small things on the side. Tomas nodded slowly. He did not ask anything else. I rented a room above the feed store from a widow named Beatrice Magnus. She charged me $200 a month and asked no questions. The room had a single window facing the ridge. At night, the sky was so dark the stars looked wet. I worked. I slept. I did not touch a violin bow for 6 months. One Friday in October, Tomas walked into the shop with a long black case in his arms and set it on my bench. "Tell me what you see," he said. The case was a violin case. Old. Late 19th century. The leather was cracked along the spine. The brass clasps had been resoldered at least once, badly. I opened it carefully. Empty velvet inside. A small storage compartment for rosin and spare strings. Nothing else. "The symphony down in Bracken Pass asked me to restore it," Tomas said. "Belonged to a soloist who passed it down through her family. They want it for an exhibit." I ran my fingers along the inside lining. The velvet was original. The padding underneath was horsehair, packed by hand, worn flat in the shape of a violin that had not lived inside it for 40 years. "It is real," I said. "The case, I mean." "I know it is real. Tell me what else." I looked at him. His eyes were patient, tea-colored, watching. "You already know what is in here," I said. "I want to hear you find it." I lifted the velvet liner gently along the bottom edge. It came up easier than it should have. Underneath, between the velvet and the wood, someone had tucked a folded sheet of paper, cream-colored, watermarked with a pattern I had personally designed 9 years earlier. I unfolded it slowly. It was a sales certificate. Notarized, dated 4 years ago, for a violin valued at $290,000. The buyer's name had been blacked out. The seller's name had not. It was Scarlett Devereux. I waited 3 days before I told Tomas anything. 3 days of staring at the certificate folded inside my work apron pocket. 3 days of pretending I had never seen Scarlett's name on a piece of paper. On the 4th day, she walked into the cabinet shop. She wore a camel coat. Her hair was shorter, sharper. She was carrying a small handbag I had once watched her decide not to buy because the leather smelled wrong. "Ozzy, there you are." Tomas looked up from his lathe. He did not turn it off. The hum of the machine kept going, low and steady like a slow river. "Scarlett, what are you doing here?" "I was driving through. I had a meeting in Bracken Pass. Imagine my surprise." "Imagine." She glanced at Tomas. He did not glance back. He kept his hands on the wood. "Could we talk outside?" I followed her to the gravel lot. The wind was sharp. It pulled her hair across her mouth, and she pushed it back with fingers that trembled just enough that I noticed. "How did you find me?" "Beatrice. She mentioned you to a friend. The friend mentioned you to a friend. Small towns." "What do you want?" She smiled. It did not reach her eyes. "I want you to leave it alone, Ozzy. Whatever you are thinking, leave it alone." She drove away in a car I had never seen. Imported. The kind that costs as much as a small house. That night, I sat at Beatrice's kitchen table while she fried onions in butter and pretended not to watch me. "That woman who came," Beatrice said. "Friend of yours?" "Once. Long time ago. She left a smell in my front room I cannot get out." I almost laughed. I went online for the first time in months. I searched her name. The internet had been busy in my absence. Scarlett had a feature in a regional lifestyle magazine. She had bought a small chateau in the wine country. Photographed in a linen dress, holding a glass of something pale and cold, smiling at a sunset she had not earned. The article called her a survivor. A woman who had endured great betrayal and rebuilt her life with grace. Strangers wrote in the comments that they admired her strength, that they hoped to find her resilience inside themselves. I closed the laptop slowly. In the kitchen, Beatrice was humming. The onions sizzled and went sweet. I went back upstairs and lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then I took out the certificate and folded it twice more. I knew, in that moment, what I would not do. I would not chase her. The decision did something strange to me. It made the air taste different. For weeks, I had carried a small fire inside my chest, planning what I would do, what I would say, where I would send the certificate. Now the fire went out, and the cold place underneath turned out to be quiet. I gave Tomas the certificate the next morning. I told him everything. The bows, the forgeries, the trial, my name as the world knew it now. He listened with his hands flat on the workbench. When I finished, he nodded once. "You will not send this?" "No." "Why?" "Because she is waiting for me to send it. She has prepared for that. If I do, I become the obsessed convict who will not let go. She wins again." He thought about that for a long time. "Then what?" Then I work here, with you, quietly, and I let the world finish what I cannot." He looked at me strangely, as if I had said something he had been waiting to hear from someone for a very long time. "Some things finish themselves," he said, "if you let them." He took the certificate from my hand. He folded it inside an envelope. He sealed the envelope. He put the envelope inside an old tin behind the stove. "For later," he said. 5 months passed. I learned to make dovetail joints by feel. I learned which boards in Thomas's barn were the ones he saved for grandchildren who would not be born. I learned to drink coffee the way he made it, which was thick enough to hold a spoon up. In late February, a letter came for him. He read it at the kitchen table while Beatrice ironed sheets in the next room. His face did not change. When he was done, he set the letter down and tapped it twice with his thumb. "There is a man in Antwerp," he said. "All right. He is a metallurgist. He works for a private gallery. They authenticate old metals, silver mostly. A few months ago, he ran a trace analysis on a piece that had been quietly returned to a collector in London." "What kind of piece?" "A frog, from a violin bow, late Sartori." I sat down very slowly. He found something in the alloy, not the silver itself, the trace impurities. They came from a specific recasting of an older silver object. He flagged it. He has flagged it twice now, in 2 separate forgeries. "What was the older object?" Thomas folded the letter. "A wedding ring, stolen 7 years ago from a home in Yorkshire. The wedding ring belonged to a woman named Doris Marlowe. She had been 81 years old when it was taken. The thief had broken into her stone cottage during a winter night, taken her ring, 2 old pocket watches, and a small porcelain bird from the mantel. The case had gone cold within a month." Thomas told me this slowly, reading from the letter. While I made tea, I had no intention of drinking. "The investigating officer at the time," he said, "was her son." I looked up. "His name is Detective Inspector Niall Marlowe. He was a constable when the burglary happened. He worked the case as a personal mission, never closed it, kept the file open in the bottom drawer of his desk for 7 years. And now? Now the metallurgist in Antwerp has flagged this alloy in 2 separate violin bow frogs. The chain of custody on those frogs leads back to a private gallery in Geneva. The gallery will not name its source, but it has cooperated before. It will again when pressed. Scarlet, Scarlet." I sat with that for a long time. I did not move. I did not speak. "He does not know my name yet. Not yet. He will not need it. No. The universe is doing the work." Thomas almost smiled. "The universe takes its time. It keeps the receipts." Thomas heard from the metallurgist again in early April. The man's name was Peter de Vos. He had a habit of writing letters by hand on heavy paper, the kind people use for wedding invitations. The second letter said Inspector Marlowe had quietly flown to Antwerp. He had spent 2 days inside the gallery's records room. He had not made a public statement. He had not contacted any agency. He had simply asked very polite questions of very nervous men. "He knows how to walk softly," Thomas said. "His mother taught him." He told Peter that. Did he ask about the seller? He asked about everyone. The buyer, the shipping route, the original holding party. And one name that Peter said made the gallery owner go pale. "Whose name?" "A private buyer in Geneva named Henrik Vossen. He is a man who has bought from Scarlett Devereux on 3 separate occasions over 5 years. Each transaction has been below the public reporting threshold. Each transaction has involved an instrument component listed as antique restoration material. He was her main buyer. He still is, and he is very afraid right now. Is he gonna talk?" Thomas folded the letter into the same tin behind the stove. "He will not need to. The records will speak for him." I went outside and stood in the cold, breathing slowly. She arrived on a Saturday morning. The bell over the cabinet shop door rang once, softly, the way it always did when someone was unsure of being there. I looked up from a drawer I was hand-fitting and saw a young woman in a long gray coat. Her hair was Scarlet's color. Her eyes were not. "Are you Ozioma Atlas?" I set down my chisel. "I am. My name is Elise Devereux." She paused as if she expected me to throw something. "I think you used to be my godmother." I had held her 3 days after she was born. I had bought her first pair of shoes. I had stopped speaking to her mother before she turned 10 because my work consumed me, but I had never stopped loving the small girl with the serious eyebrows. She was 22 now. The eyebrows were still serious. "Come in. Sit. Coffee? Please." Tomas walked through, glanced at her, and walked back out without a word. He had a sense for when a room needed only 2 people. She held the cup with both hands. She did not drink. "I drove 3 hours. I do not know exactly why I came. You can stay until you do." She looked at me. Her eyes were wet. "There's something wrong with my mother. I think you know what it is." I did not tell her. That is the thing I will remember most about that morning. I did not tell her. I poured her another coffee. I asked about her studies. She was finishing a master's in conservation science. Wood, mostly. Old structures. She said it like an apology. "My mother thinks it is a small career." "It is a beautiful career. She wanted me to do business, or law, something that pays." "Your mother and I disagreed about what payment means." She almost smiled. She told me about her father, Reuben, who worked in pharmaceuticals and traveled most of the year. About the shadow in the wine country, which she hated because it was too quiet and the staff watched her. About her mother's new friends who all wore the same shoes. "She fired our cleaner last week. She fired our gardener 2 weeks before that. She locked the office door. She has not let me near the office in 6 months." "What do you think is in the office?" Elise looked at her cup. "I do not know, but she sleeps with the key around her neck." I felt something turn over slowly in my chest. The universe was building a corridor, step by quiet step, and Elise was walking down it without knowing. She stayed for lunch. Beatrice made grilled cheese with tomato soup and asked Elise no questions, which is the highest form of welcome an old woman can offer. Before Elise left, she stood by her car for a long time with her hand on the door. "Ozioma, did my mother do something to you?" I had practiced the answer for 10 months. "Your mother and I had a falling out. She did some things I did not understand. The court understood them differently than I did. That is all I will say." "That is not an answer. It is the answer I can give you today." She looked up the road. The mountain wind moved her hair across her face. "If something is wrong with her, will you tell me when I can know?" "Yes, promise." "I promise." She drove away in a small white car, and I watched her until the road took her around the ridge. That night, Tomas opened the tin behind the stove. He set the envelope on the table between us. "Do you want to send it now?" "No, especially not now. Elise will find the truth on her own. It will mean more to her if she does." He returned the envelope to the tin. What I did not know was that in a small office in Manchester, an inspector had just written Scarlett's name in pencil on a yellow sticky note. Inspector Marlowe came to Scarlett's chateau on a Tuesday. He came alone. He came in a rental car. He wore a wool coat that did not fit well around his shoulders. I did not see this. Elise told me later in pieces with long pauses between them. He told the housekeeper he had a few questions about a small matter relating to a metallurgical analysis. He used those exact words. The housekeeper, who was new and afraid of the woman she worked for, led him into the front parlor. Scarlett came down the stairs in slacks and a cashmere sweater. She poured him tea he had not been asked to be poured. She crossed her legs. She smiled. He asked her about a private sale 4 years ago, a bow component, a frog. He was very polite. His questions had soft edges and hard centers. She lied with the calm of a woman who had lied for a living. He did not write anything down. He did not record anything. He simply listened, nodded, sipped his tea, and left. He did not tell her that he had already obtained the day before a sealed shipping manifest from a freight company in Antwerp, with her signature on it. When his car disappeared down the gravel drive, Scarlett stood in the parlor for 9 minutes without moving. Then she ran. She ran upstairs. She ran into her office. She locked the door behind her. Elise heard her. Elise had been home for the weekend. She had been reading on the back terrace. She had heard the car come and the car go, and then her mother's footsteps fast on the wooden stairs, like hooves on a hollow log. She walked up after a few minutes. She knocked on the office door. Her mother did not answer. She tried the handle. The handle turned. Her mother had locked the door, but her mother had also forgotten to set the second deadbolt that she had installed 2 months earlier. Elise opened the door. Scarlett was kneeling on the floor in front of the small wood-burning stove she used in winter. She was feeding paper to the fire by the handful, fast, with the panic of a woman shoveling snow off a roof before it caved. Beside her on the rug was an open safe. Inside the safe were stacks of documents, a velvet pouch, a small ring box, and a leather journal. Scarlett looked up. Her face was a face Elise had never seen. "Get out." "Mama? Elise? Get out of this room." Elise did not move. She watched her mother feed 3 more documents to the fire. Then Elise walked forward, knelt down, and picked up the journal. "Put that down, Elise. What is in this?" "Put it down." "Mama, what is in this journal?" Scarlett stood up. The fire snapped behind her. Her hair had come loose. There was ash on her sweater. "You do not understand what you are doing. Tell me, Elise. Tell me what you are burning." Scarlett reached for the journal. Elise stepped back. "It is not what you think." "What is it then?" "It is mine. It is private. Give it back." "Mama, there was a man in our house, a police officer, from England. He drank tea in our parlor and you smiled at him like you were on a stage. What did he ask you about?" Scarlett's mouth opened. Scarlett's mouth closed. For the first time in 22 years, Elise watched her mother run out of words. "Was it about Ozzy?" The name hit the room like a stone in still water. "Where did you hear that name?" "I went to her last week. I sat in her kitchen. She did not tell me anything. She would not. She kept your secret, whatever it is, and I came home and you were burning paper." Scarlett sat down on the floor, slowly, like all the bones in her body had decided to retire at the same time. "Get out, Elise. Tell me." "I cannot." "Then I will read this journal." "Do not." Elise opened the journal. Scarlett did not stop her. "Bert," she read for a long time. She read on the floor of her mother's office, with the fire dying behind her, and her mother's face in her hands. She read the pages dated 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6. She read about bow components swapped in the dark of a workshop while her godmother slept upstairs. She read about a forged signature practiced 97 times before it was clean enough to use. She read about a man named Henrik Vossen, in Geneva, who paid in cash and asked no questions. She read about a wedding ring melted in a small clay crucible behind a hotel in Lisbon. She read about Ozzy, about the trial, about the planted receipts, about the night Scarlett had sat across a table from Mr. Carraway and told him gently that her best friend liked to brag about how easy it would be to fool him. When Elise finished, she closed the journal. She did not cry. She walked out of the office. She walked down the stairs. She walked out of the chateau. She got into her small white car. She drove 3 hours through mountain rain to Selden Hollow. She did not call ahead. She arrived after midnight. She did not knock at the cabinet shop. She knew I lived above the feed store. She found my door. She knocked once, twice. Her hand was steady. I opened the door. She held out the journal. "Read it." I let her in. I made her tea she did not drink. She sat on the floor with her back against my radiator, and I sat at my desk and I read every page. It took me 2 hours. Some pages were shopping lists of crimes. Some pages were Scarlett's complaints about me, about my talent, about how I was given things she had to steal, about how unfair the world had been to her, who had grown up beautiful and broke, while I had grown up plain and gifted. One page, near the back, was a list of names, people she had ruined. Not all of them clients. One was a college friend. One was an old boss. One was a former tenant who had asked too many questions about a missing tenant deposit. I was the longest entry on the list. When I finished, I closed the journal. I looked at Elise. "What do you want me to do with this?" She wiped her face with the back of her hand. The first time she had touched it since walking in. "I do not know." I did not need to do anything. The next morning, before I had finished my coffee, Thomas knocked on my door. He was holding his small flip phone. His face was very still. Pieter called, from Antwerp. "Yes." "They moved last night. The Geneva Gallery turned over the records 2 days ago. They had agreed to it under pressure. They did not tell Henrik Vossen they were going to. He found out yesterday. He flew to a country with no extradition. He left a message for Scarlett on her personal line accusing her of selling him out. Inspector Marlowe's team had a tap on that line for 48 hours. They heard everything. And Scarlett. They came for her at 6 this morning, quietly, no press, no cameras, 3 officers and a warrant. Reuben was traveling. Elise was not at the house. She was here with you." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "They are taking her to Manchester for questioning. The wedding ring case is the lead charge. The forgeries will follow. Once those records open, every collector she ever sold to will want their money back. My case. Your conviction will be reviewed within the month. Peter said Inspector Marlowe is going to write the petition himself. Behind me, Elise sat on the floor. She put her face in her hands. She did not move for a long time. The review took 6 weeks. My conviction was overturned in May. The civil money came back to my mother, who used it to repaint her clinic. Scarlett took a plea, 16 years. She named everyone she had ever sold to, and a few she had only thought about. The collector world, which is small and quiet and remembers everything, closed against her name like a door. Mr. Carraway wrote me a letter. He apologized. He did not ask for forgiveness. He sent his bow back to the shop where I had once worked, with a request that I, and only I, restore it. I did. I charged him fairly. Elise lives in Selden Hollow now. She finishes her thesis under a maple tree in Beatrice's yard. She calls me Auntie again. She has not spoken to her mother in 8 months. Tomas built me a small workshop behind his shop. The sign reads, Ozioma Atlas, Bow Restorer. The letters are not large. People who need me find me anyway. I never used the certificate. It is still in the tin behind the stove. The universe does not need help. It only needs time and a few honest people who will not look away. If this story moved something quiet inside you, leave your thoughts below. If you have ever lost everything to someone you loved, or you are still picking up your life one careful piece at a time, you are exactly where you belong. Tap subscribe, hit like, and stay close. The next story is already coming.